All right, we are live. Good evening, good evening. Hope you are doing well. Looks like we've got a couple people viewing. Feel free, go ahead and let us know in the chat who it is that is with us tonight. Hope you are all doing well. Us tonight. Good evening, Laura. Hope you're doing great, doing wonderful. It is a beautiful, beautiful evening out there. It's a little warm, a little muggy, but I'm enjoying it. I will take this over Snowmageddon any and every day. Everything is, hey there to the Montney crew. Glad to have Brad and Susie on board. All right. Hard to believe that this is already, we're halfway through the season of Lent. Lots of stuff that's coming up these next couple weeks. We've got burgers and basketball. I've got a wedding that I'm officiating this weekend. We've got Seafood Fest coming up. So there is a lot going on right now as we head full on into the season of spring. But I'm glad to have everybody here, and we'll see who joins us later on, but we're back into the book, back into the Screwtape Letters. We are in chapters 24 and 26 today, so we're doing a couple of ones. We're bouncing around a little bit. Chapters 24 and 26, and it's interesting because these two chapters are dealing with relationships. They're talking about love. Okay? Can you remember when you first found the love of your life? Maybe you're sitting right next to them right now, Brad. Hint, hint. Wink, wink. But when we found that love of our life, that person that we enjoyed being around, we wanted to spend time with, and then life happens, right? And so it's kind of interesting because he uses in both chapters 24 and chapter 26, Lewis uses that basis of a relationship to go about and continue along his discussion about how the demons and how all that temptation comes to fruition. So without further ado, I was just kind of giving a minute or so to wait to see if we had anybody else that would join on, but we'll see. Maybe they will. Maybe they'll join us in a little bit. But so without further ado, let's go ahead and jump on in. We are in chapter 24 to start off with, and again, if you're using my copy or the same copy that I'm using, chapter 24 starts on page 129. 129. And what's kind of interesting here is that all of a sudden we are introduced to another demon. Okay? As we've been going through this book and taking on this challenge of reading the Screwtape Letters, we've had the interactions between two demons. We've had Screwtape and we've had Wormwood, right? Screwtape again being the older of the two demons, who is kind of mentoring the young Wormwood, and Wormwood has been the demon that's been assigned to kind of the main individual that is behind the writings that C.S. Lewis has. That one who's being tempted in every way, if you will. And now all of a sudden he's met a girl, and it's cute, and it's a wonderful, and they are Twitter-pated and in love. And here's the thing. He's got a demon. The man's got a demon. It's Wormwood. And now she, the girl that he's in love with, she has a demon of her own. And her demon's name is Slum Trimpet. How would you like that name? Screwtape's kind of a interesting, unique name. Probably wouldn't name your own kid that, but okay. Wormwood, Wormwood, I hear that, and I can't help but think of Matilda. Right? We just had the musical Matilda here at Atonement this past weekend. The kids did a phenomenal job. Evan and all of his helpers did a fantastic job as well, and in that movie musical, whatever one you want to reference, Matilda is a Wormwood, right? Her parents are Mr. and Mrs. Wormwood, and so whenever I think of Wormwood, I go there and back to here. But never in my wildest mind would I come up with a name like Slum Trimpet. That sounds like a demon, doesn't it? It sounds like somebody who's up to no good. A Slum Trimpet. But what's interesting is, as we look through chapter 24, and as we get kind of this detail about the relationship between the man and the young man and the young woman, we begin to see that there's this distinction that Lewis is helping us to see between spiritual ignorance and spiritual pride. Spiritual ignorance and spiritual pride. Okay? And here's kind of the thing. Like we see, if you look there, right about halfway there down page 129, it says, the males who habitually meet these outsiders do not feel that way. Their confidence, if they are confident, is of a different kind. Hers, which she supposes to be due to faith, is in reality largely due to the mere color she has taken from her surroundings. Right? And essentially, what C.S. Lewis is trying to get at in this whole kind of a situation is that when we first meet somebody, that we can get kind of caught up in all of just the newness of it, right? You get caught because for so many years you've done things your way, or you've done things your family's way, or what have you, and now all of a sudden you're meeting somebody who has done the same thing but just for themselves or for their family. Excuse me. And now it is this coming together and trying to find out this mutual ground, if you will. Excuse me 1 second. Sorry about that. And so you've got ignorance and you've got spiritual pride, right? And ignorance is just kind of this whole thing of, well, I just never kind of thought about it that way, or I never put much stock into it, right? And it's fine. It's, she'll go, if you look further down the bottom of that page, it says, now the element of ignorance and naivety in all of this is so large, the element of spiritual pride is so small that it gives us little hope of the girl herself. Okay? And what it's talking about is, he gives the example of the fish knives, right? Well, we don't really have fish knives, but it's kind of this understanding, well, my family's fish knives, my family's things, well, that's what I grew up with, so they are what I know, and they are the proper kind. They are the real kind. They are the what have you, right? It's just that ignorance. That it's the only way. And maybe we don't necessarily, like I said, have fish knives, but aren't there different things that we kind of experience that, well, no, that's not the right way, because that's not how Mama did it. That's not how I grew up. That's not how it's made, right? I mean, have you ever kind of experienced that? Feel free, again, in the comments. Put anything in the comments that you might have experienced that, where it's different than what you grew up with, and so it becomes confusing. It becomes almost feeling like, well, that's not the way that it's supposed to be. Some of my favorite kind of little video or little TikToks or Instagram things, those short little videos that I like to watch are, you'll see the ones where a husband will say something, and then right after he says something, it pans out and you see like a picture of his obituary, and you hear the song "In the Arms of an Angel" or something like that, right? And one of the things that can routinely happen in those kind of videos is, "Oh, how's dinner, hun?" "Ah, pretty good, but Mom made it better." Or, "It's not like Mom used to make." Have you guys ever kind of experienced that? Not necessarily maybe with the cooking, but just with something else, right? Yeah, exactly. Laura said everyone only likes the mac and cheese from childhood, or Mom's mac and cheese, right? And we see this even with our own kids, right? Like I had some of the Chick-fil-A mac and cheese, which is really good, by the way, if you happen to have it. And we had some leftover of that, and so the other night I was making chicken cutlets for dinner. Got had that mac and cheese from Chick-fil-A, was going to warm that up. I had about a sheet pan of it, and then one of my kids, "I don't want that one. I want the one that comes in the blue box, the Kraft one." Like, really? So now you want me to make a whole nother box of macaroni and cheese because you don't want this one, right? Because we grow comfortable, we grow complacent with that. And it's not that having those kinds of things are bad, but in our ignorance, we can kind of get into the mindset that that's the only way that it can or that it should be. And here's the challenge, and this is a little bit of what Lewis is getting at as he writes this chapter or writes this letter, is that when we take it further than that, right? When we take it further than just, "Oh, well, I prefer this mac and cheese over that mac and cheese." Well, what about, "Well, I prefer, if you don't like that mac and cheese, then something wrong with you." Okay. Well, what about when we get into, "Well, if you don't like my candidate or my political policies, well, then there must be something wrong with you. If you don't like my worship style or my choice of service time or whatever, then there must be something wrong with you." And just kind of that list goes on and on and on, and it can lead to a sense of division. Okay? A sense of division within the people, within the church, and it just kind of goes on there, and it just grows and it festers. Okay? And we can see where that would then have that effect on God's people and on the church. And so there's that. So the ignorance in and of itself isn't necessarily bad, but it's when it continues to build and it continues to impact the church and the way that we view one another, right? And so you've got that, but then you've also got spiritual ignorance, but then you also have this thing that he references called spiritual pride. Okay? And again, it's one of those things in and of itself. Pride is a good thing, right? I mean, we always want to tell our kids, take pride in your work. Okay? Take your time. Slow down. Write it nice and neat. Take pride in what you do. Right? We get older. Take pride in your job. Take pride in your work that way. Right? That you want to go ahead and you want to make sure that you do it and you do it right so that it comes off well. People want your products. People want to come to you for services, whatever it might be, right? And so pride in and of itself is fine. It's a good thing. Nothing wrong with it. But as we'll see, pride when the problem can't even talk anymore right now. What the problem of pride can be is when we use it to judge and to hold ourselves above other people, right? Above other people and the way that they are in the relationships with God. When we come off as if we are superior to others, right? In our religion practice, in the way that we conduct ourselves, or what have you. He kind of talks about it a little bit there, about 2/3 of the way down, page 130, where he starts talking. He says, the conditions seem idly favorable. The new circle which he finds himself in, and this is the new circle that the man, Wormwood's patient, remember they use that terminology, patient, to reference the people that they are tormenting or tempting or what have you. But he says, that the new circle he finds himself in, which is those people associated with the girl that he loves, whether it's his girlfriend, fiance, what have you at that time. It's, so he says that they can be tempted for many reasons other than its Christianity. It is better educated, more intelligent, more agreeable society than any he has yet encountered. He's also under some degree of illusion of his own place in, under the influence of love. He may still think himself unworthy of the girl, but he's rapidly ceasing to think himself unworthy of the others. There's this kind of mindset that we can get when we get into these groups that, we don't belong, and maybe we're not as good or equal to these other people. And it keeps on and he says, he has no notion how much in him is forgiven because they are charitable and made the best of because he's now one of the family. He does not dream how much of his conversation, how many of his opinions are recognized by them all as mere echoes of their own. And he kind of keeps going on and on and on. And what he's getting at in this section is that we can become and find ourselves in this situation where we feel that our ideas, our understanding, our way of faith is superior to others, right? It makes us feel as if we are the better Christian. We are the better followers of Jesus. Okay? And it kind of reminds me of the old joke, and I've used this at times in sermons, but the old joke that essentially man dies, goes to heaven, and as he's up in heaven now, St. Peter's giving him the tour, and they go by, and they see they see a house, and as they're approaching the house, the man hears a bunch of voices saying, "Hail Mary, Mother of Grace," and they approach, and Peter looks at them and says, "Oh, that's the Catholics. They're here." And as they go a little bit further, they come upon another house, and as they're passing by that house, they hear just a loud ruckus saying, "Oh, amen, preach it, yes, say it again, brother." And the man looks at Peter, and again he's told, "Well, that's the Baptist. They're here." And they come upon a third house, and as they're approaching it, Peter looks at the man quickly and gives him, as they quietly pass by. And after they get far enough away, the man looks over at Peter and goes, "Well, what gives? What happened?" And Peter's response was, "Oh, that's the Lutherans. They think they're the only ones here." And again, we can say that kind of tongue in cheek, but there's a little bit of truth to that, right? And again, every denomination kind of has their own version of that, kind of makes it their own. But there is some truth to that. And this is part of the spiritual superiority that C.S. Lewis is hinting at in this chapter, is the idea that certain groups of Christians can get into the mindset that they are the only ones, that they are the right ones, that nobody else does Christianity, does faith correctly. Okay? And that's not to say, I got to be careful with this, right? Because that's not to say that, well, then it doesn't matter where you go to church. It doesn't matter if you take communion, if you don't take communion. All these kinds of things. I mean, there's definitely merit to that, right? And I'm a Lutheran, LCMS Lutheran pastor because I believe we have correct doctrine. But there's a difference between having correct doctrine and lording it over people, if you will. Having correct doctrine and trying to be nitpicky and find fault with this pastor or that church denomination or that group of people, as opposed to holding on to the true and right doctrine that we have, teaching it and loving people and loving Jesus at the same time. Hopefully that makes sense. And I hope that you get to see that. So feel free to put into the comments about that if it does make sense, if it doesn't make sense, and we can kind of go forward with that. And so, yeah, it is a kind of an interesting thing, if you will, right? Where we can hold on to what is right, but we want to make sure that we continue to love others. And then if you turn on to page 132, he says, he must be made to feel he better not put it into words, how different we Christians are, and by we Christians, he must really, but unknowingly, mean my set of Christian, right? My set, he must mean, and by my set, he must mean not the people who in their charity and humility have accepted me, but the people with whom I associate by right, who I associate as being correct, as being the right ones. Okay? And so we get into that again, that mindset of this is who we are, right? And then the last thing I really kind of, in this chapter, really wanted to focus in on, he says, and this is at the bottom of page 132, he says, what you want is to keep a sly self-congratulation mixing with all of his thoughts and never allow him to raise the question, what precisely am I congratulating myself about? The idea of belonging to an inner ring, of being in secret, is very sweet to him. Play on that nerve. Again, we're getting closer to Easter, and all at times I'll joke about it, where we kind of treat the traditional Easter welcome greeting, kind of as like this secret handshake message type of thing, right? Where I'll get up and I'll say, "He is risen," and the congregation, you guys will all respond, "He is risen indeed, Alleluia." And I know I'm not supposed to say the A word during Lent, but I think God will give us a pass tonight. Okay? And we say, at the beginning of church, we say throughout church on Easter, but I've even said it, like I'll shake somebody's hand, I'll say good morning to somebody, what have you. Yeah. Hey, he is risen. He is risen indeed, Alleluia. Good morning, good to see you. That kind of a thing. And so it's been great and it's been wonderful to do that. But it doesn't mean that we're part of a secret society. It just means, hey, we're joyful of the resurrection. But again, the main point that Lewis is making in this chapter is that there are those who can kind of think within the church, whether it's the church as a whole, or whether it's specific congregations or something like that. There can be individuals and there can be groups within any and all of those that think they've got all the answers. It's their way or the highway. They're the correct ones, and everybody else is just doing it wrong. Okay. So that's chapter 24 in a nutshell. Does anybody have any other questions or comments or anything to add to our chapter 24 discussion before we move on? If you do, feel free to go ahead and throw it on into the chat. Laura, you've been very active in the chats. I appreciate that for you. And another issue is about when do we open Christmas presents? Because we can open them up. Some families open them on Christmas Eve, some on Christmas Day, some in the morning, some at night. The list just kind of goes on and on with all of those. So, any other thoughts on on chapter 24 before we move on? All right. Hearing none. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and we'll skip over chapter 25, and we will then move on into chapter 26. Oh, wait, here we go. It came in just as I was saying it. This is awesome. All right. I love learning about Catholic traditions, and I really love Jewish traditions. Yeah, I mean, it is kind of interesting to learn about the new traditions. And guess what? Some of the traditions, some of the things that are Catholic or what have you, actually kind of are either cool or could definitely be brought back. But I'm with you, Laura. I love learning about that kind of stuff too, and you learn new things all the time. For instance, there's a retired pastor that I'm in frequent communication with, and he sends me a lot of different little videos, but a lot of times on Facebook, but a lot of different videos of things, and sometimes they're humorous, what have you, but then there's some that really get me thinking. Like, he sent me one just the other day about communion, and it was a video from a Catholic group, and they were talking about the reasoning for communion being for the host being placed on the tongue, as opposed to the pastor placing it in your hand and then you place it in there, because there was somewhere, and I can't remember off the top of my head, but somewhere recently there was some interaction, altercation, if you will, with some Catholics and a group of Satanists, right? That and apparently the Satanists took the communion host from this group or whatever. It was in Kansas City. I just was looking it up really quick. It happened March 21st. And there's this lawsuit that's going on right now that says that the Satanist took the communion host, a consecrated host, and then that they plan to then defile it at one of their black masses or something like that. And so the notion of this video was that if you place the communion host, if you place it on the tongue, then the person automatically takes it and doesn't have that opportunity. And they went as far as to say too that the priest has his hands consecrated so that he's touching it appropriately, right? And then also on top of all of that, and this is where I was going before I went on my rabbit hole tangent, is that according to the early Catholic tradition for baptism, there would be salt that had been exorcised to remove the any impurities, any demons, anything like that. Exorcised salt would then be put onto the tongue of the infant as they were baptized, thereby purifying their tongue so that when it is time for them to receive it, that they'd be able to receive the host. Right? And I had never, in my it'll be 42 years at the end of this month, I had never heard of something like that. But you learn about it, and it's like, okay, I can see why they would do that, right? And so you get to learn these new things. And Brad, no, the disciples were Lutheran. They just didn't know it, right? But all kidding aside, the disciples weren't Lutheran. People have been following Jesus ever since the days of the disciples, and the church has kept on going. All right. Well, I'm not going to talk about that, Laura. You, we'll see. We'll see. We'll let you figure that one out. All right. Now on to chapter 26. As we get into chapter 26, the courtship, the love, the twitterpation of the man and the woman has been continuing on. And we're getting into now this distinction, this fine line that can be drawn between unselfishness and charity. Unselfishness and charity. And what's interesting is, because I don't know about you, but when I think of unselfishness, I think that as an admirable trait. Okay? Something that should be lauded as being good, as something that we should try and desire to imitate and to do. And so, as we go through this chapter, we see that it's actually talked about in a way that isn't the greatest. Right? I mean, if we kind of look down, we can see, going on to page 141, we see this not so flattering picture of love, of relationships, of potentially of marriage, right? We see, we remember when we first met our significant other and just how everything was great and everything was wonderful and they could do no wrong and all those kinds of things, right? And this chapter starts off with these words. It says, yes, courtship is the time for sowing those seeds which will grow up 10 years later into domestic hatred. I think I'm going to use that line, right? As I mentioned, I've got a wedding that I'm doing this weekend. I think I'm going to use that line. Courtship is the time for sowing those seeds. You've done the courtship, and now you're getting ready to see that in 10 years there will be domestic hatred. You may kiss your bride. I'm not sure how much the bride and the groom, the parents, the family members are gonna like that, but he's got a little bit of a point, right? Because he keeps on and he says, the enchantment of unsatisfied desire produces results which the humans can be made to mistake for the results of charity. That there's this difference between charity and between unselfishness, right? And then if you kind of look down, he keeps on going. He says the grand problem, this is the start of the next paragraph. The grand problem is that of unselfishness. Note, once again, the admirable work of our philological arm in substituting the negative unselfishness for the enemy's positive charity. Our unselfishness for the enemy's positive charity. I mean, let that just kind of sink in for a quick minute, right? That we've got that mindset. Like I said again, when we hear of unselfishness, it comes off as a good thing, as something that is lauded, that we should want to duplicate, to emanate, and yet it is not something that God is going ahead and holding up. And he uses the philological, right? And it's kind of interesting because I had to look up that definition, philological, and it's essentially the study of literature and of disciplines relevant to literature or to language as used in literature. So one of those great definitions that completely clearly is understandable, right? At the heart of it, it's wordplay. It is wordplay that they're getting out to. So if you were to jump over onto page 142, it kind of gets into the what really is behind all this. Top of page 142, it says, a woman means unselfishness, chiefly by unselfishness, chiefly taking trouble for others. A man means not giving trouble to others. Okay. In other words, he's saying for women, being unselfish means that they take on the troubles of others. Right? They take on the world's problems. They've got to figure it out, fix it, solve it. Right? That and they take that on, whether it's their spouse, their significant other, whether in the future it's their children, their grandchildren, whether it's their co-workers, whether it's their best friends, whether it's their mother, their parents, whether it's their siblings, whatever. That they take on the world's problems, and they feel that by being unselfish, it means that they have to be there and have to help and have to just let everybody else unload on them, and they take it and they try to fix it and get everything just right, and it just goes on and on and on. And how is that working for you? How is that working? For most people, when they go through that, it's exhausting. I mean, just just kind of talking and thinking about that, like I can feel the tension growing in my shoulders right now. It's like, man, I just need to get somebody kind of come in and give that massage and get that loosened up and worked out. Okay? And they think that's what it means for them to be unselfish, and that they need to do that. They need to take that on themselves. And on the flip side, he says, men are kind of like the opposite. Men, instead of taking on everybody else's problems, they look at the world, we look at the world in our unselfish way of, you know what? You all have enough problems. I'm going to just hold that in. I'm going to keep that to myself. I'm going to bury that deep down inside, so that nobody else has to worry about it. Nobody else has to deal with that. Nobody else has to hear about it. You've got your own problems to deal with. I know you probably don't want to hear about my problems. And so we're just going to kind of keep it down there. Just keep it buried all the way down. Shove it down. Another situation comes, another struggle, another challenge, another problem. Okay, put that back on top. Just push it down. Keep packing it in more and more and more. And again, I ask the question, how's that going? Right. How's that helping you? All right, let's see what we got coming. I think many men can see that trait in women as neglect of their needs. Okay, that's an interesting point. What do you mean by that, Laura? Let's dissect that a little bit more. That men can see what trait? That women take on so much, and then therefore they neglect the things that they're supposed to be doing because they're trying to take care of everybody else. Is that what you're implying? I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, so I'm just asking and clarifying with all that if that is indeed what you mean by that. Because if that is what you mean, then I can definitely see that. Yeah, there are definitely people that, yeah, oh yeah, yep, absolutely. You care about others, you don't care about me. I can see that. Yes, there are definitely men that feel that way. Right? You're investing so much time into everybody else except for me. And on the flip side, there's many women who can feel from the men in their lives that they're not being completely open and honest. Right? That they're opening up to their significant others, they're opening up to their spouses, and they're not getting that back. Right? And so that can definitely be a challenge and a struggle as well as they kind of go on through that. That is, yeah. There are definitely times where men can feel neglected when women have children. Absolutely, not always the case. And to be honest, sometimes us as men, we kind of do it to ourselves, right? And I think that's also part of what he's getting at here is that it's not always what's done to us, but it's what we've done to ourselves as well. That you can kind of go on and on and on. Absolutely, yeah. If you don't know, how can somebody help you, right? And I've said that whether it's in relationships, whether it's as pastoring the church. Right? If I don't know, how can I fix something? How can I change something? Or what have you, right? And so that is the whole mindset behind unselfishness that can lead to trouble, can lead to disdain, can lead to the challenges and to the struggles with what's going on, and in relationships, in the way that we interact with one another. And so the whole unselfishness isn't the best way, right? Because you go on and he says in the bottom of page 142, you must make them establish as a law for their whole married life that degree of mutual self-sacrifice which is at present sprouting naturally out of the enchantment, but which, when the enchantment dies away, they will not have charity enough to enable them to perform. Right? In other words, he's getting at this thought process that it's easy to do this when the love is fresh, when everybody's Twitter pated and it's great and it's wonderful. We're dating, we're engaged, we're happy newlyweds. And then life goes on, whether it's 10 years, whether it's for some it's only 2, whether it's 5, whatever, 15, 20, whatever it happens to be. We get to that point where it's just like, this is actually work. This isn't just easy street. This isn't just okay. There's this work, and then I feel like I have to work to get him to do this or do that or see me, and I feel like I have to work to get her to notice me instead of everybody else, and take care of my needs, and again the list just goes on and on and on, and all this time being unselfish has now led to this opportunity for resentment, for challenging, for struggles, and even anger, maybe even hatred, to kind of fester and boil and come to the surface. Okay? And there's that difference. And he kind of goes on as well, and he adds in that it's not just in the relationship between significant others, but it's in other relationships. Because if you go on to page 143, he says later on, and this is about 2/3 of the way down, it says later on you can venture on what may be called the generous conflict illusion. This game is best played when with more than 2 players in a family. And it goes on to say, with more than 2 players in a family with grown-up children, for example. Something quite trivial, like having tea in the garden, is proposed. One member makes quite clear that they would rather not, but, of course, unselfishly, I'll do it. Another instantly withdraws the proposal because, of course, unselfishly, well, if you don't want it, I'll do it. I won't do it, and so on and so forth. And kind of goes back and forth, right? And we kind of poke fun at this a little bit, especially, again, when it's the young love, where you see it. Maybe you experience it yourself, but you see it like on shows and in movies, whatever. What do you want to do? I don't care. What do you want to do? Oh, I don't care. What do you want to do? Oh, not me. Whatever you want to do. Well, I don't care what we do. You choose whatever you want to do. Yeah, and that back and forth, and then there's usually off to the side there's an older couple who's past all of that. It's just, fine, we'll choose, right? And kind of go on. But again, he's kind of getting at this. It can go with anything and everything, and all these groups, whether it's a couple or whether it's multiple people, where everybody gets so unselfish in the sense that they don't want to offend anybody, that nothing happens, and everybody's just holding resentment towards one another. And on the flip side, there is what is known as charity, right? There is this idea that charity is, look, I'm going to let you know, I'm going to be 100% upfront. Here's where I stand. Here's what I want. Here's how we should do this. And there's this mutual love and respect and honor that goes along with it. so that we're not hiding things, we're not burying things, we're not trying to act and look one way when we really are or feel another. But instead, we're having that open, honest communication with one another, done within the confines of mutual love and respect. Okay? That this isn't a time to lord things over. This isn't a time to, well, I'm right, you're wrong, blah, blah, blah. But to work with each other and to move forward as one, whether it's, again, as one, as the couple, as the group, as the church, as the body, whatever it might be. And so there is that difference between charity and unselfishness. And this is kind of as we wrap up this evening, this is one of the things that I love about this this book, the way that it gets us to think in this mindset, that the devil works in wily ways, right? I mean, there's a reason why Peter states that the devil prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking whom he can devour. Okay? And he's full of this mischief and this cunning. I mean, we see it all the way at the very beginning in Genesis, right? Genesis chapter 3. Did God really say? So often we can associate the devil, we can associate temptation and struggles and challenges and all these kind of things as, well, there's this big thing. You got the angel on the one shoulder, the devil on the other. Take the piece of candy. Don't take the piece of candy. Take it. Don't take it. So on and so forth. And it seems so obvious. Okay? But what I hope that you're seeing as we're going through the Screwtape Letters is that sometimes it's not that obvious. The devil is crafty and cunning. That's what he says about the snake, that he's more cunning than any of the other creatures that the Lord God made. Right? That there is this shift and this mindset in the way that he interacts with people and the way that he progresses forward. Did God really say? Is that really that bad? Well, aren't you right? I mean, what did they know? You've been a lifelong Lutheran. Why should they say that? You've been here a lot longer. You've been a member here. Your family. You're so on and so forth, right? And we can get caught up into those kinds of things. Well, don't they know what you've done? How you sacrificed? How unselfish you were? So now you should be able to reap the rewards. You should be able to say X, Y, or Z. You should be able to... And we can use the way that we live our life. We can use our faith. We can use our understanding as weapons as opposed to using them as means of growing together in our relationship with God, first and foremost, and then our relationship with one another on top of that. And in a sense, that is what is happening in chapters 24 and 26 of the Screwtape Letters. All right. Hopefully that was helpful. Hopefully that was enjoyable. I'm glad to have those of you who gathered tonight. Next week is our final time coming together to talk about the Screwtape Letters. Again, we're going to be reading 2 different chapters that aren't following one another. We're going to be reading through chapters 27 and then jumping over to chapter 29. Chapter 27 and chapter 29 as we wrap up, and next week will be our final one, because it's hard to believe that we are already a week and a half away from Holy Week. So there's a lot that is going on with all of that. Again, thanks for coming on out. Thanks for joining us. Hope that you're having a great season of Lent, a wonderful spring, and I look forward to talking to all of you soon and seeing you in person as well. Have a good night, guys.